Have you ever noticed how the people you admire most are the ones who tell you not to follow them? Think about it. The best teachers encourage you to question their methods. The wisest leaders want you to think for yourself. The most enlightened mentors actually push you away from dependence on them. It's a paradox, isn't it? The moment someone demands blind loyalty or unquestioning faith, something feels off. But when someone says, "Don't just believe me, figure it out for yourself," that's when you know you've found someone worth listening to. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us are terrible at this. We'd rather follow a map someone else drew than risk getting lost making our own. What I'm talking about is the lost art of intellectual independence. The courage to trust your own judgment instead of outsourcing your thinking to someone else. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical concept. This is about the very foundation of how you live your life. We live in an age of infinite experts, gurus, and thought leaders. Everyone has a system, a method, a blueprint for success. Open Instagram and you'll find 1,000 people telling you exactly how to think, what to believe, and how to live. The self-help industry alone is worth billions of dollars, built entirely on our desire to find someone else's map to happiness. But here's what nobody talks about. When you constantly look outside yourself for answers, you lose touch with your own inner compass. You become what philosophers call a believer rather than an inquirer. You stop questioning and start accepting. You stop exploring and start following. This distinction between believers and inquirers changes everything. It determines whether you live your own life or someone else's version of what your life should be. It's the difference between walking your own path and following footsteps that were never meant for you. And in today's world of echo chambers and algorithm-fed information, this skill has never been more critical. We're drowning in other people's opinions while starving for our own authentic insights. The question isn't whether you need to think independently, it's whether you still remember how. The seduction of following. Let's be honest, following is easy, it's comfortable. Someone else has already done the hard work of figuring things out, and all you have to do is copy their homework. Why struggle with uncertainty when you can just adopt someone else's certainty? I see this everywhere. People who completely reshape their personalities based on whatever podcasts they binged last week. Friends who suddenly start talking exactly like their favorite YouTuber, using the same phrases, the same perspectives, even the same mannerisms. It's like intellectual cosplay. But here's the trap. The moment you stop thinking for yourself, you stop growing. You become a copy of a copy, getting further and further away from any original insight. You might feel confident because you're armed with someone else's ideas, but that confidence is borrowed. And borrowed confidence crumbles the moment you face a situation your guru never prepared you for. Think about it in relationships. How many people do you know who completely lose themselves in romantic partnerships? They adopt their partner's interests, opinions, even the way they speak. They think they're being loving, but they're actually disappearing. And when the relationship ends, they have no idea who they are anymore. The same thing happens with intellectual dependence. You think you're learning, but you're actually unlearning how to think. The danger of mental maps. Here's a powerful way to think about this. Every teacher, every guru, every expert is offering you their mental map of reality. And maps can be incredibly useful. They can show you shortcuts, warn you about dangers, point you toward opportunities you might miss. But here's what they can't do. They can't give you the territory itself. The map is not the terrain. Someone else's understanding of life is not your life. Someone else's solution to their problems might not solve your problems. Someone else's path to happiness might lead you straight into misery. I learned this the hard way in my early 20s.
I was obsessed with productivity gurus. I tried every system, every app, every morning routine. I organized my life exactly like successful entrepreneurs down to what I ate for breakfast. And I was miserable. Why? Because I was living someone else's definition of productivity instead of figuring out what actually worked for me. The breakthrough came when I stopped following systems and started experimenting. I took bits and pieces from different approaches, tested them in my own life, kept what worked, and threw out what didn't. Suddenly, I wasn't just more productive, I was more myself. That's the difference between using a map as a reference and using it as a substitute for your own navigation skills. The value of your unique perspective. Here's something that might surprise you. Your perspective matters. Not just to you, but to everyone. When you think independently, when you form your own opinions based on your own experience, you're not just helping yourself, you're adding something valuable to the collective human understanding. Every breakthrough in science, art, business, and philosophy came from someone who was willing to see things differently. They didn't just accept the conventional wisdom, they questioned it, tested it, and often found it lacking. But this only works if you're actually thinking for yourself. If you're just repeating what someone else said, you're not contributing anything new. You're just amplifying the echo. I think about this when I see people arguing about politics on social media. Most of the time, they're not sharing their own thoughts. They're just reposting talking points they heard somewhere else. It's not real discourse. It's just competing broadcasts. No one's learning anything because no one's actually thinking. But when someone shares a genuinely personal perspective, something they've wrestled with, questioned, and formed their own opinion about, that's when conversations become interesting. That's when we all learn something. The fear factor. So, if thinking independently is so valuable, why don't more people do it? Simple. It's scary. When you think for yourself, you have to take responsibility for being wrong. When you follow someone else, you can always blame them if things don't work out. Well, the guru said this would work, or I was just following the system. Independent thinking also means accepting uncertainty. Followers get to feel certain because they've adopted someone else's certainty. But inquirers have to live with doubt, with questions, with the possibility that they might not have all the answers. And here's the big one. Thinking independently can be lonely. When you develop your own perspectives, you might find yourself disagreeing with your tribe, your family, your social media feed. It's much easier to just go along with whatever everyone else believes. But here's what I've learned. That loneliness is temporary, and it's worth it. Because on the other side of that fear is something incredible, the ability to trust yourself. And once you can trust yourself, you can engage with others as an equal, not as a follower looking for a leader.
The art of productive doubt. The key isn't to reject all outside input. That's just another form of blindness. The key is to develop what I call productive doubt. This means approaching every idea, including your own, with curiosity rather than automatic acceptance or rejection. When someone shares an idea with you, instead of asking, "Is this right or wrong?" ask, "How might this be useful? What can I learn from this? How does this fit with what I've experienced?" Take their map, but don't throw away your compass. Use their insights to inform your own exploration, not to replace it. This is how you can learn from teachers without becoming dependent on them. This is how you can benefit from other people's wisdom without losing your own. This is how you transform from a believer into an inquirer. So here's your challenge. Start questioning everything, including what I just told you. Don't take my word for it. Test these ideas in your own life. Pay attention to when you're following versus when you're thinking. Notice when you're using someone else's map versus creating your own. The goal isn't to become a contrarian who rejects all outside input. The goal is to become someone who can engage with ideas without being enslaved by them. Someone who can learn from others without losing themselves. Remember, the best teachers will always tell you not to follow them. They want you to become an inquirer,
not a believer. So start inquiring. Your authentic self is waiting on the other side of that courage. If this resonated with you, here's what I want you to do. Take a moment right now and think of one area in your life where you've been following someone else's blueprint without question. Maybe it's your career path, your relationships, or even something small like your daily routine. Hit the like button if you're ready to start questioning more and following less. And in the comments, tell me about a time when you had to stop following someone else's advice and trust your own judgment instead. I'd love to hear your story. Subscribe for more content on philosophy, psychology, and the art of thinking for yourself.